Managing information. We now live in a world where the amount of information available to us is just absolutely ridiculous. If you think 100 years ago, how much information was available to an individual living 100 years ago, right? Not a huge amount. The occasional newspaper, which might have been late, and everything else. Now, we have so much information, it is crazy. I think that's a problem, because I think we can be overwhelmed with information. So I think it's important we manage the information flow. Now, if you're a fundamental trader and you read company reports and everything else, that's great. Identify one source for that information, regularly check that source and be done with it. If you don't require a lot of that information, but you read the occasional forum or something like that, then that's great, but don't select 10 of them. Because it's so critical that we manage the information flow. All right, so I guess you need to work out what information do you need and where are you going to source it from. And that's it. Write it in your plan if you have to. You don't have to, but that's it. There's just only 24 hours in the day, and there's so many demands on our time now that we can be easily overwhelmed with information. So I think it's critical that, ideally we get to the point where we're really not after much information. We have our software, we have our data feed, and we may not need much more than that, so far as information is concerned. I guess from my military background, routine just comes as second nature. And having a routine ensures that everything that needs to get done, gets done. And in an environment and an endeavour where we struggle to do things and not quite sure what we need to do, what's wrong with just having a simple checklist, which ensures that we check it off as each thing we need to do gets done. Even just an entry checklist before you enter a trade. Is the price doing this? Have I set my stop loss? Have I checked the industry sector? Have I position sized correctly? Check it all off as you go through. What's wrong with having a checklist? What's wrong with having a routine that ensures that everything that needs to be done is done? Okay? I think a routine after a while just becomes instinctive and you just get it done, and it makes you become more efficient. Right? So that routine is obviously be different for different people, but I think it's important to develop a routine. Okay? And the idea of a trading diary is to literally have a diary, and someone mentioned before about a watch list or a short list, perhaps anything we're considering in the next week or so, just note it in your diary. We've noticed a little pattern forming in stock X, Y, Z, but I don't think it's going to complete for another couple of days. Well, I'm not going to remember in another couple of days that I need to look back at the chart of X, Y, Z. If you throw it in your diary, you'll remember. Right? So it just helps you and makes you more efficient. Furthermore to having a diary and keeping track of things, I really believe in the importance of monitoring your performance. Pardon me. Now, the easy way to do this is just to check your balance in your account. That's the easy way to monitor your performance, but I think we can do that a little bit better than that. Pardon me. And I like the idea of periodically going back and reviewing our trades. So perhaps we've gone for 3 months, have all our trades printed out in a folder with all the charts, and we go back over our old trades and just see how we went and how we could have done things differently. Often you'll hear people tell you, if you have a losing trade, you have a loss in a trade, call it a tuition fee. It's an expense like a tuition fee. I don't agree with that, because I think you can have the perfect trade but still lose money. So I think you can enter a trade based on all your entry criteria. The trade moves against you, hits your stop loss, you execute the order, gone. Perfect trade, lost money, no lessons to be taken away from that trade. In fact, if there's any lesson, it's you did the right thing. Equally, you can have profitable trades and make all the mistakes in the world, which is not necessarily a good thing. But I do believe in monitoring your performance. Now, I was very fortunate for those 2 years, as I've mentioned, to work with probably the premier fighting force on the planet, and that's the United States Army. And one of the things they did really, really well is they monitored their performance. See, what they did is whenever they went out for an exercise or an activity, whether it be half a day or a full week, at the end of that activity, they would go through a process called the after action review. It was 4 steps. The first step was to identify what happened. The second step was to identify what was good and what was bad with what happened. The third step was, if we were to do this all over again, what would we do differently? And the fourth step was, which was sometimes implemented, was to actually go back and do the activity all over again. Now, the after-action review was a critical component of their constant improving. And I really admired what they did with this, because there was almost no rank. You could say what you wanted and not offend any perhaps superior officer or anything. It was really a great learning experience. And I think we can perhaps take some of that and just go back over our old trades and work out, if I had that trade differently, what would I do differently? If I had that trade again, what would I do differently? Constant improvement to make ourselves a better trader. I really do believe that.